decipher when to follow our intuition? Is our intuition from our animal soul or our godly soul?
Both souls have intuition. If it's a soul, it has intuition. It has intelligence, it has emotions, and it has intuition. So is it your godly soul giving you this intuition, or is it your human soul? That's a serious freedom of choice, right? If it leads to more mitzvahs, it's your godly soul. If it leads to less mitzvahs, it's your human soul.
But how can you know that? How can you know where it's going to lead?
You try. If you make a mistake, you'll find out.
Isn't it fear-based?
The hard way, huh?
Isn't it fear-based? Like if you're making a decision based off of your fear, then that's not the right place. But if you're using your intuition from without your ego, then essentially that's your higher self, which is the godly.
Yeah, the question is, how do you know? Every intuition sounds selfless.
I know, but that's something to ask yourself. Like,
Yes.
Are you afraid? Is this
Yeah.
fight or flight?
Yeah.
But fear is in with all of us, and fear is also just inevitably in the unknown.
Yeah.
So then you have to really ask yourself, then, what's this fear?
Yeah.
So there's a great story about one of the famous rabbis in the olden days. They were very poor. So they depended on the Hasidim supporting them. And there was one wealthy Chassid that this rabbi had who came once a year, and his donation paid for most of the bills for the year. So the day he came, he gave his donation, which was, let's say, 300 ruble. And the rabbi put it in his drawer. The next visitor came and said that he has to marry off his daughter, and he can't afford it. He needs 300 ruble. So the rabbi thought, I'll give her the 300 ruble, perfect. And he thought, no, wait a minute. The night is young, more people will come, they'll also need help. So why give him the whole 300? Let's divide it into 3 parts. I'll give him 100. I'll keep for myself to pay my bills 100. And the other 100 is for whoever comes late, whoever comes next in the evening. And he couldn't decide which was his godly soul and which was his human soul speaking. So he took out some time to think about it. And he decided to give the whole 300. Based on what? This is really detective work. So when did I decide to divide it into 3 parts? Not when he gave me the money, I put it in my drawer for myself. When did I come up with the brilliant idea of dividing it into 3 parts? When I was about to give this guy the 300 ruble. So the whole idea of dividing it was to keep me from giving the 300. Okay, that's not the godly soul speaking. That's pretty intelligent. So if it's stopping you from doing a mitzvah, it can't possibly be. Like a guy says, I'm divorcing my wife because I want to become observant and she doesn't want to. Now, is that coming from his godly soul or from his human soul?
Wait, is that grounds to get divorced? Like, is that what you're saying?
No,
That's not grounds.
not necessarily.
So spouses are not on the same level, and even though it causes friction in the household, as a kid, I don't know, it's still not.
Certainly not necessarily, Anyway, so he thinks that the desire to become more observant is coming from his godly soul. I said, I don't think so. Because the first thing you're going to do is divorce your wife, which is the one mitzvah you're keeping. So you're going to stop doing the one mitzvah you're doing because you want to do many more mitzvahs? That doesn't sound like the godly soul. So just a little
So it's not really
clue.
intuition. It's
No.
use your intellect.
To determine which intuition is godly, you have to...
Right.
Generally, we don't trust our intuition enough. Certainly women should trust their intuition more than we do, because it's usually good. And husbands should learn to trust their wives' intuition. Don't argue. Like Adam trusted his wife's intuition, and it was good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
My ex-husband's name, not my ex-husband, but my ex is Adam.
It was good. Otherwise, we'd all be sitting in Eden getting old. It's a good thing they ate from the tree. She was right. But that's a old story. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sorry.
You know what I'm talking about? That she was right? You haven't heard that?
I have not.
We were waiting for we skipped voracious, then we I caught it last night over class. We'll get to it.
Chava is the hero, not the villain. How's that for a
Plot twist.
yes. God said, don't eat from the tree. The day you eat from it, you'll die. And they ate from it because Chava said. What made her do that? The conventional wisdom is the snake tricked her, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The snake was a very shrewd animal, but she was an intelligent human being. I mean, come on. A snake tricked you. The reason she ate from the tree is because she knew that their mission was to elevate the world that needed fixing. Well, they're in Gan Eden, they're in the Garden of Eden, and nothing needs fixing. So she said, we're not in the right place. So when God said, if you eat from the tree, you'll die, she said, oh, there's a world in which you die? That needs fixing. So God wants us to go into the world where there is death, because that's the lower world that we are supposed to be fixing. So Adam said, but if God wanted us there, he would have put us there. And Chava said, no, God wants us to volunteer. He takes us to the threshold, but he doesn't force us through the door. So he brought us to the verge by giving us this tree, but to eat or not to eat, we must decide. He said, boy, you're smart. And she was right. She knew it would take 5,785 years to get it done. But, what's 5,000 years? To somebody who was going to live forever. So it's a very, very good story, not a bad story. And they weren't punished. They left the Garden of Eden because there's nothing to do there. Their job was in the world where there's death and suffering and misery, and we have to fix it. So now we understand everything. We are not the ruiners of the world, the way the secular believe. The world is the lowest world because it was created as the lowest world. A low world has a lack of godly awareness. There's death, there's misery, there's suffering, there's evil. And that's the world we're supposed to fix. So when we see evil, we don't get intimidated. You say, oh, we're supposed to fix that? Okay, let's fix it. That's how we survived. Because we knew the world is not evil for the sake of evil. It's there to be fixed.
And why did God create that world? The lower world.
Because when the lower world becomes godly, it is greater than the highest world. Greater in that it's closer to him. Like we're closer to God than the angels. Because the angels are just a little more of Him. But God wanted someone He could relate to, who could relate to Him. Someone who could either love Him back or hate Him back. Which is what marriage is. You marry someone who could love you, but he could also hate you. And if you're not willing to risk that, you don't want to really be married. God risked it. And He loves it. He loves it when we hate Him.
I have a really burning question that I have about your children and when they start dating and they get very serious even though they're really young and they want to get married. And, on the one hand, you see the couple and you say, oh, well, that couple you think is really going to work out great. And then on the other hand, you see another couple and you said, oh, there's a lot of problems already, but both kids want to move forward. And do you just sort of be quiet and let them do what they want? Or should you express an opinion either which way?
Well, you should definitely express an opinion when they're dating. Once they decide to get married, that's a little difficult
So,
because they're not listening.
right. So, but nobody's engaged yet.
Right, so definitely offer your opinion.
Okay.
What's your intuition?
It's that. It's,
And how young is too young?
I don't know. How old are my children? I have a 19 and I have a 17-year-old. But I'm most worried about the oldest one.
19 is not too young. It's young.
It's young.
But we become mature when necessary. No one becomes mature if it wasn't necessary. And that's why most people today are not mature at 35. Because they don't have to be.
Right. Nobody's making that.
True.
But if you know you're getting married, you get mature. Teenagers who get pregnant and have a baby, they become mature. Because they have to. Men don't become mature because they don't have to. So it's not so simple as, 19 is still immature. Well, yeah. If you're not getting married till you're 30, why bother? But if you know you're getting married at 20, you become mature at 19. And if you know you're getting married at 19, you become mature at 18. Our grandparents did that.
Yeah.
Well, you had to be mature back in those days anyway, just to survive. The main thing in marriage is that the husband should be the giver and the wife should be the nurturer. If you have that, you don't really have to worry about anything else. But if that's not in place, nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work.
The husband's the nurturer, the wife is the giver.
No,
The-
reverse.
The wife is the nurturer,
Yeah,
the
the
husband
husband
is
is
the
the
giver.
Every woman wants to lean on her husband. If she's stronger, bigger, more capable than him, she doesn't feel married. She doesn't have a husband, she has a roommate. So you always want to find someone smarter than you, stronger than you, in some way reliable so that you can lean on him. If you can lean on him, then you can be free to nurture your children. If you have to be the support for him, you're not free.
And what do you do if it's not?
You make it. If the woman becomes more nurturing, he'll become more giving. If he becomes more giving, she'll become more nurturing.
I learned recently that the times of Mashiach the women will be in their masculine. No, is the flip?
No.
Or that they were and they're going to become in their closer to their feminine.
Yes. The feminine.
Same time as in Mitzrayim, that the women were doing the men's jobs and
Well, that was bad.
right.
Yeah. No, in the future, which is now, I think the future has arrived. So in the future, the feminine trait will be more dominant than the masculine. Not that women will become masculine.
In the women?
Yeah.
And what about men?
Men will be inspired by their women.
Because there's many not masculine men nowadays.
Unless they're liberal.
Have you noticed?
It's a problem.
It's a big
Huge
problem.
problem.
But the more nurturing you become, the more giving they'll become. That's called being more dominant. So the question is, what the chicken or the egg?
Yeah. That's,
She says, well, if he was a little more of a man, and he says, well, if she was a little more of a woman. So who's going to start? Until Mashiach, the man has to start. Be more of a giver, she'll be more receptive. Now it's the other way around. Be more receptive, you'll make him into a giver. It's like the students and the teacher again. Good students make a great teacher out of a regular teacher. A great teacher makes great students out of ordinary students. So where do you start? Start with the students. I tell all these kids who are frustrated with school, teacher is stupid, teacher doesn't... So well, make him into a teacher. Ask good questions, you'll be surprised. The teacher will suddenly come up with answers. There's nothing more inspiring to a teacher than a really interested student. And there's nothing more inspiring to a husband than a wife who wants him to be the giver and the leader. So Adam named his wife Chava, which means mother of all life, including the man's life. You not only give life to your children, you give life to your husband. You turn him into a man.
So men are not made. Like they're not just born into it. They're made.
No, it's the same. The theme is the same. We need to do more for God. We're the wife.
Okay.
But when we do for God, he becomes much more available and much more, right? Becomes a man. Become man out of God.
What would you, sorry, you go.
I have a parenting question. I find myself really struggling to parent and navigate in a world where kids are so overly exposed to everything. And my parenting style might be different than other peers' parent style, which really it can influence my children. And then if I tend to be strict or have more rules, it ends up backlashing and not working, and then my child tries to find ways to break the rules or justify what they're doing. And I don't know, what's the balance as far as like parenting, friendship, open relationship, and navigating through all of this information that is just like so much, and they're not developed enough to even process all of it.
Can't avoid it. The only way to succeed is to work with it. So they're exposed to all sorts of foolishness and worse. Talk about it. So what do you like about this show or this talk or this idea? You can't make rules. Rules are meant to be broken. In the olden days, we made rules because the kids were helpless anyway. So they listened because they couldn't do anything. Today, kids can do everything. So rules don't work. Right and wrong always works. So if you tell a child this is right or this is wrong, they are prepared for life. You tell them these are the rules.
So how do you navigate that with social media? Do you give them access to everything at a certain age? Do you limit it?
You limit it as much as possible, but it's not going to... You
So-
can't really limit it. You can't hide from it. So you got to get your children prepared to recognize the truth from the noise. Empower them.
How do you do that?
Well, they heard something about kids being promiscuous. So you sit down, you say, what? Right or wrong? Good or bad? What do you think? Is that good? That's not good. What's good about it? What's bad about it? You got to talk to kids like they're adults, even though they're not.
So you started a conversation with them even though they might not necessarily want to talk to you about it?
Well, if you're really interested in what they have to say, they will want to talk. If you just want to preach to them, of course they're not going to listen.
What about peers? When they have certain peers?
Same thing, same thing. What do you like about your friend? What kind of friend is she? Is she like what? Talk about it. Unwrap. Open the package. See what's there. Make them think. That's, I think, the key word. They're just being bombarded passively. Make them think.
I feel like that advice can be applied to modern day marriage as well, because there's so much temptation within social media and all around us. And that leads me to my question to you. It's so taboo, especially within the Orthodox community, but divorce is becoming more and more prevalent. I'm divorced. My ex-husband and I were both raised very similarly within the Chabad community, modern Orthodox. Thank God he's one of my best friends. We co-parent beautifully. Took him a few years to give me the get, but still, he's now moved on, remarried, and God willing, I will be soon. What do you have to say to people who come to you and they let their marriage go and then they're starting over, perhaps, or what do you have to say just about divorce, period? Curious. Your advice or opinion on it, as what we're at above 55% national average. I don't know what it is within the Jewish community. I'm sure it's way less, but still, no doubt it's happening.
And it's not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing, right?
Right.
Divorce is not an option. When it's not necessary, then it should never happen. When it is necessary, you have no choice. So it's never an option. If it must be, it must be. That's why God created it. So although it's certainly not a sin to get divorced, God tells you how to do it. But it's not an option. It's not, oh yeah, we can always get divorced. No. When it has to happen, then it must happen. And if it doesn't have to happen, then it must not happen. When it does happen, looking back at it, it's all part of the divine plan. Mm-hmm. You were meant to have husband number one, and now there's husband number two. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't work out, there's husband number three. And if that doesn't work out, there's husband number four.
God willing, that's not my case, but it's all
Up,
good.
up to 7.
Up to 7.
After 7, you're on your own. God says, I give up. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
See, somehow there's a cutoff.
yeah.
You know anybody who was married 8,
An ex-husband just to not go past the 7.
or Zsa,
Yeah.
nobody gets married 8. Somehow there's like this, even what was this, the king? That horrible king with his wives?
Oh,
Louis the Seventh, what was it?
Henry VIII.
Henry,
Henry
the eighth.
Right.
Anyway, so the point is, most marriages that fail because he is not a giver or she is not a receiver. Because this crazy notion that marriage involves two equals 50-50, it's a disaster. It's unnatural. No woman wants to be equal with her husband. Because if we're equal, what do I need you for? So if a woman calls me and says, I'm going with this guy, he is so, I've never seen anyone, he is the sweetest, the kindest, the most respectful, the most gentle. I don't know why I'm hesitating. I said, I know why. You don't want to marry him, you want to adopt him. You want to mother him. Like a puppy. A guy calls and says, I'm going out with this woman. She is so amazing. She's so smart. She's so strong. She's so capable. She can do anything. Why am I hesitating? Because what are you going to offer her? You got nothing to offer. You can't fool Mother Nature. Men want to be caretakers. Women want to be nurturers. You can't switch. You can't. So marriage involves a giver and a receiver. You have two givers, you'll have nothing but World War III. You have two receivers, you first, no, you first, no, you first. No, nothing will ever happen. So it's got to be a giver and a receiver, and the man is not a man if he doesn't feel like he's a giver, and the woman doesn't feel like a woman if she's not being a nurturer. Now, that doesn't mean that the woman can't be more talented than her husband, right? But in the end, the most talented woman wants to be able to fall back on her husband.
Yes.
Because if he's not there as her backup, as her safety net, she's alone in the world. And that's a terrible feeling.
I have a question. What's the issue with when you said like a woman thinks that the guy she's dating is super respectful and kind, and you said like what's the issue with that?
The hesitation.
He's
Yeah,
not.
what's the
He's not
hesitation?
someone you can lean on.
If he's super kind, then why can't you?
Do you
lean
mean
on
if there is any hesitation?
Yeah, if there is a hesitation, why would there be hesitation from that?
Because you don't respect him.
But why can't you respect someone that's super kind and gentle?
That makes sense.
Well,
Wait, so what
if he is... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
If he's kind in an unusual degree, with real firm commitment to kindness, then it's a strength that you can rely on. If he's just kind and gentle and you're kind, you're gentle, what do you need him for? So kind and gentle and sweet, that's non-threatening. But it's not something you admire. It's something you feel really comfortable with, like a puppy.
So what qualities should a man have that you should respect?
All right, so in very general terms, where it's like, he's got a life, and you really want to be part of his life because you admire it. But if you have a life, and he wants to be part of your life, not a husband. So a woman calls and says, we're going, we want to get married, but I have a very good job in Boston, and anyone who wants to marry me has to move to Boston. I say, call it off. You're dictating his life? Then he's not going to be your husband. If you don't want to join him in his world, his life, his vision of what, then don't marry him. And a guy who doesn't have a vision of what his life is, why would anybody marry him? Like, I'll marry you and we'll go where? Oh, I don't know. Forget it. Forget it. So you have to be able not only to feel comfortable with your husband, you have to be able to look up to him.
Yeah.
That's why women always want a guy who's at least taller.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? It's different questions. I think a lot of times people, women get confused with this point. They have, like my husband and I are involved in shidduchim, and there's a lot of women, especially older singles, who let's say make more money than their husbands, and they think they have to look like, one of the things we tell girls, like, you could make more, but you have to respect it in a different way. Would you, like, meaning, you don't have to become a, like, $20 an hour job to get married. Would you agree with that?
Of course. Making more money doesn't mean you're more reliable, you're more of a mensch. Doesn't mean that. Making less money doesn't mean he's not a real strong individual with a good lifestyle worth living that you can actually support with your money. So money is neither here nor there. I know this idea that if you make more money, you're the strong one. Not necessarily. And by the same token, if all he does is make more money, it doesn't work. You still can't rely on him. If you fall apart, he'll fall apart. So what's the money going to do for you? So the feminist idea that if a woman makes more money, then she is an empowered woman. She's not an empowered woman, she's rich. Doesn't make you more of a woman. And a guy who makes more money doesn't make him more of a man. It's just money. Money is neutral. So yeah, the wife can make more money. The wife can be better at almost everything, except that he is strong and you can depend on him. You're the one who knows how to keep a checkbook. You're the one who knows how to run a home. You're the one who's more social, but he is your support. He gives you security. Then he's a husband. So this 50-50 idea, we're equal, no, you're not. You don't want to be equal. So the Torah says, probably the most controversial quote in the Torah, God said to Eve, to Chava, you will yearn for your husband and he will rule over you. Curse. God doesn't curse. What sounds like a curse is really a blessing. So the Midrash says, God curses Chava that she will yearn for a husband. What's the result? When men hear that women yearn for a husband, they all run looking for a wife. So she doesn't have to look for a husband. They'll come looking for you. So it's not a curse, it's a blessing. Men find women's yearning irresistible. So the fact that she yearns for a husband is what turns the man into a man. Because he feels needed. He feels like he can provide. Becomes a man. But then this one woman said, a very traditional woman, but very uncomfortable with, he will rule over you? She says, fix it. Take it out, take it out. The actual wording is, v'hu yimshol bach, which is not grammatically, it's not he will rule over you. Bach means within you. He will rule within you. What does that mean? He will rule because you want him to. Because you need him to. If he doesn't rule, you don't need him.
So then why do men need women?
Because men are givers, and if nobody needs them, then they're completely useless. When God said it is not good to be a man to be alone, he was of course talking about Adam, but he was also talking about himself. The reason God created the world is because it's not good to be alone, and he was alone until he created Adam. So all of existence, the whole creation, the relationship between God and his world, it's all a romantic marriage. So when you get married, you're imitating God. God doesn't want to be alone. You don't want to be alone. So getting married and being intimate is the godliest thing human beings are capable of, other than doing a mitzvah.
Even more so than being a parent.
Yep. Because how do you become a parent? Somebody asked recently, what was it, last weekend? Somebody asked, why do religious families have so many children? I said, because they don't know what's causing it. Once they find out what's causing it. So, does the marriage come before the children? Of course. Otherwise, there would be no children. We have found out what's causing it. So the intimacy between husband and wife is holier than parenting. It's literally imitating God in something that is purely godly.
Can I ask you something? So if the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people is a similar relationship to husband and wife, then why are people so controversial about Hashem not needing the Jewish people if it's a relationship? It seems, to me, I don't understand the controversy.
Frankly, I don't understand it either. But I wonder, people who can't imagine that God needs us, they also think their husbands don't need them? Or husbands think they don't need their wives because they think they're God? So, what is the definition of perfect? God is perfect. He doesn't need you. Not needing anybody means you're perfect, or it means you're irrelevant. What's so good about perfect? When we say God is perfect, we don't mean it as a compliment. We mean it as a motivation. Why did God create the world? Because he's perfect. Would you want to be perfect? It's terrible. It's a dead end.
Is Siddiqim considered perfect?
They're considered godly, which is much better than perfect. Right? So I don't know why we're so impressed with perfect. So the guy who says to me, oh, God is perfect, he doesn't need anybody. I said, are you married? I pity your wife. Because as you become more and more perfect, you don't need her anymore. Perfection is not a good thing.
So is there such a thing as a perfect marriage?
There's such a thing as a godly marriage, because they've become perfectly united.
After 50 years?
Certainly by then. Now, so it works like this. What comes after love?
Marriage.
Is there love after love?
That's a song.
I know. They don't give the answer. What happens after love? your husband is the love of your life for about 30 years. After that, he becomes the pleasure of your life. Love morphs into pleasure. The difference is, love is a pursuit. Love means I want more. I want to get closer. So absence makes the heart grow fonder. Because if there's distance, I don't like it. I want to get closer. After a fight, and you make up, you're closer. Pleasure is not a pursuit. When what you love is far away, you love it more. But when what gives you pleasure is far away, you don't have more pleasure. You have agony. So pleasure means when I have what gives me pleasure, it is pleasurable. Love means if I don't have who I love, I will pursue it and try to get closer. So love is a verb. Pleasure is a condition. So after the pursuit of love, when you've grown together and become united, then you become the pleasure of each other's life. And that's why in older couples, if one of them dies,
That's it.
the other one, if the pleasure of your life is gone, there's no life. The love of your life is gone, so you're lonely. But it's not the same as when the pleasure is gone. So what happens after love is pleasure. It's no longer a pursuit. It's a pleasurable reality. And then you become inseparable. So that's what happens when Mashiach comes. Until Mashiach comes, we love serving God. When Mashiach comes, we will enter into the pleasure state, which doesn't go anywhere. It's it. And that can go on forever.
It's like how Shabbos should be.
Hmm?
Right? Is that how Shabbos should be? Or it's just pleasure?
Shabbos is a taste of the future.
Robert Friedman, can I ask that a question? I heard you speak years ago at Beis Chana. It was about like shidduchim, and someone asked you, it wasn't me, someone else asked, are there like people who don't get married? And you said, yeah, there is a list of people who don't get married, but you don't have to be on the list. So I want to thank you. It was very inspiring. The time I was single, thank God I'm married now, but I used to quote you a lot with that. Thank you. So, but my question is, I was talking to her before this year, and I was saying to her, you know, there's a lot of people who are single, and a lot of people are proposing different ideas recently, and a lot of the magazines are talking about the age gap, and if girls start dating later, and my husband and I are like looking at each other like, I don't know what they're talking about. So I just want to get your thoughts, because we work in shidduchim, he does, and I do it as a chesed, and like a lot of times, especially with older singles, that's what he works on. There's like a long list, you know, people have, he has to be 6'3" and have blue, I mean, just the, you know, I know you've helped like so many people over the years. What are your thoughts on the shidduch crisis, and can everyone get married, and like that just sort of, it's a big topic, sorry, but that's
It's amazing how the shidduch crisis is over as soon as you get married.
right.
The people with the lists are just frustrating themselves. I want him to be tall, I want him to be dark, I want him to be handsome. Your husband is who he is. You can't change him. He is chosen for you before you were born. In fact, 6,000 years ago, when God thought of creating the world, part of his picture and part of his plan was who you're going to marry. So you're married to this guy already for 6,000 years. And he's not tall. What are you going to do about it? So instead of trying to design a husband, like a Mr. Potato Head. Your husband is your husband. You don't get to redesign him. You can either make him or break him, but you can't change him. So stop worrying about what he looks like and who he is and what. Worry about what you're going to do to him, because that you can control. Other than that, he is who he is.
Does that same theory apply to a second husband?
Yes.
As far as that he was
Yes.
chosen
Yes, 6,000 years ago.
6,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? Are there people in this world who Hashem didn't design a
Yes.
spouse for?
Yes.
Who are these people?
I don't know.
But
I'm not part of that group.
so people who never got married and they just don't want to be married. I have cousins that don't want to be married, and I think it's because they're all millennials and they're very
Oh.
young. And
Yeah. They'll get married.
well, I have no idea if they will, if they don't. They just decided they don't want to be.
They'll get married. Talking to the Christian, and he says, why don't you accept what we believe? I said, because you're a liar. He said, what? Well, how am I a liar? I said, you show me a picture of Jesus. That's not his picture. Don't tell me he's Swedish. He's Scandinavian. That's not what he looked like. We know what he looked like. He was short, fat, and bald. Yeah, and he was born to a virgin, short, fat, and bald. Don't show me a picture of some guy from a fashion magazine and tell me this is him. You're a liar. In other words, yeah, there was a man from Bethlehem, but he is who he is. Don't try to pass him off as you're lying. The guy said, I had a dream and I dreamt of him. He came to me. I said, how do you know it was him? Oh, it looked like him. It looked like him? So your husband is your husband, and he's short, fat, and bald. What are you going to do about it? Okay, he's not short, fat, and bald. He's just bald. We're celebrating my sister's 80th birthday 2 days ago.
Wow.
In Surfside. Anyway, so my brother, my younger brother, Rifki's father, was asked to get up and speak. He says, in the past when I was asked to get up to speak, the speaking was the hard part.
Yeah.
So maybe your husband is not short, fat, and bald. Only fat. Or only bald. But really, people who have these lists really don't want to get married. They want to design a husband or a wife. You marry the person who you're meant to marry. The question is, will you do right by him? That's all. That's all. Will he do right by you? But you can't pick the person you marry. Oh, one more. What is the clue that tells you this is the right man? Chemistry. A list of qualities. He should be good, he should be kind, he should be smart, he should be... Of course. That's not a reason to marry somebody. You're not going to marry him if he's not smart. But if he is smart, that's why you marry him? No. Hire him. What clinches the marriage is that when you're sitting with this man, you feel comfortable being you. Not you're impressed with him. He's impressive, that's fine. So anybody can marry him. Why are you marrying him? Because he makes you feel like a woman. And you make him feel like a man. It's you can't explain this. You can't. So the guy is sitting with the woman and he's thinking, I wouldn't mind taking responsibility for her happiness for the rest of my life. And she's thinking, you know, with him, I would trust him, I would follow him and join him in whatever he wants. Get married on the spot. Don't let him out of your sight. So yes, the second husband is determined 6,000 years ago, and it was determined that he should be the second and not the first. Every detail is by divine plan.